Welcome, brave souls, to Dreadful Diaries, where the shadows whisper secrets and the night holds untold horrors. If you crave the thrill of the unknown, make sure to subscribe and join our community of fellow horror enthusiasts. Now, dim the lights, grab a blanket, and let's dive into our first tale of terror.
It was a crisp autumn afternoon when a group of 5 friends, Emma, Jake, Sarah, Tom, and Lily, decided to escape the hustle and bustle of their city lives for a day of relaxation in the secluded Maplewood Park. Known for its vibrant fall foliage and serene atmosphere, the park was the perfect spot for a picnic. They packed a basket full of sandwiches, fruits, and drinks, and set off with excitement. Upon arriving, they found a picturesque clearing surrounded by towering trees, their leaves a kaleidoscope of reds, oranges, and yellows. The friends spread out a large, checkered blanket that Jake had found in his grandmother's attic. It was old and worn, but it had a certain charm that made it feel special. As they settled down and began to eat, the atmosphere was filled with laughter and light-hearted banter. However, as the sun dipped lower in the sky, casting long shadows across the ground, an unsettling feeling began to creep in. Emma, who had always been sensitive to her surroundings, felt a chill run down her spine. She brushed it off, attributing it to the cool breeze. "Isn't this place beautiful?" Sarah said, taking a sip of her drink. "I can't believe we've never come here before." "Yeah, it's perfect," Tom replied, but he too felt a strange unease. He glanced around, noticing how the trees seemed to loom closer, their branches twisting like gnarled fingers. As they continued to eat, whispers began to drift through the air, barely audible but unmistakable. The friends exchanged confused glances, trying to discern where the sounds were coming from. It was as if the very trees were speaking, sharing secrets long forgotten. "Did you guys hear that?" Lily asked, her voice barely above a whisper. "Hear what?" Jake replied, trying to sound nonchalant, though he felt a knot forming in his stomach. "The whispers," she insisted. "It sounds like someone is talking." The group fell silent, straining to listen. The whispers grew louder, swirling around them like a chilling breeze. They could make out fragmented words, but nothing coherent. It was unsettling, and the laughter that had filled the air moments before faded into an uneasy silence. "Let's just enjoy our picnic," Tom suggested, attempting to lighten the mood. But as they resumed eating, shadows began to flicker at the edges of their vision. Each time they turned to look, there was nothing there, just the trees swaying gently in the wind. Suddenly, Emma stood up, her face pale. "I need to know more about this blanket," she said, her curiosity piqued. "Jake, where did you find it?" Jake shrugged. "Just in my grandma's attic. She said it belonged to a family that used to picnic here a long time ago." "Do you know what happened to them?" Emma pressed, her heart racing. "No, she didn't say," Jake replied, a hint of worry creeping into his voice. Determined to uncover the truth, Emma pulled out her phone and began searching for information about the park. As she scrolled through articles, her face grew increasingly grave. "Guys, listen to this," she said, her voice trembling. "There was a family that disappeared in this park over 50 years ago. They were last seen having a picnic, just like us." The group fell silent, the weight of her words hanging heavily in the air. The whispers intensified, now sounding more like desperate cries. Shadows danced around them, and the temperature dropped sharply. "Maybe we should leave," Sarah suggested, her eyes wide with fear. But before they could gather their things, the blanket beneath them began to tremble. The friends watched in horror as the fabric rippled, as if something was trying to break free from its confines. The whispers turned into frantic shouts, echoing through the clearing. "Help us! Help us!" the voices cried, sending chills down their spines. Panic set in, and the friends scrambled to their feet, but the blanket seemed to hold them in place, as if it had a will of its own. The shadows around them grew darker, coalescing into indistinct figures that hovered just beyond the trees. "Let go of us!" Jake shouted, pulling at the edges of the blanket, but it wouldn't budge. In a moment of desperation, Emma reached for the center of the blanket and tore it in half. The moment she did, a deafening silence fell over the clearing. The shadows dissipated, and the whispers faded into nothingness. The friends stumbled back, breathless and shaken. "What just happened?" Tom gasped, looking around as if expecting the figures to return. "I think we freed them," Emma said, her voice barely above a whisper. "They were trapped, just like we were." With trembling hands, they gathered their belongings and fled the park, the weight of the experience heavy on their hearts. As they hurried back to their car, the sun dipped below the horizon, casting an eerie twilight over Maplewood Park. The once vibrant colors of the leaves now seemed muted, and the air felt thick with an unshakable tension. Once they reached the car, they piled in, each friend lost in their thoughts. The atmosphere was somber, the laughter and joy of the picnic replaced by a haunting silence. Emma sat in the back seat, staring out the window, her mind racing with the images of the shadows and the desperate cries for help. "Do you think they're finally at peace?" Lily asked quietly, breaking the silence as they drove away. "I hope so," Emma replied, her voice heavy with emotion. "But I can't shake the feeling that we were meant to find that blanket. It was like it was calling to us." Jake, who had been driving, glanced in the rearview mirror at Emma. "I didn't think it would be like that. I just thought it was a cool old blanket. I never imagined." "None of us did," Tom interjected, shaking his head. "We should have listened to the warnings. There's a reason people avoid that park." As they drove further away, the weight of the experience began to lift, but the memory lingered. They made a pact to never speak of the picnic again, to leave the haunting experience buried in the depths of their minds. But as the days turned into weeks, the shadows of that day crept back into their thoughts, haunting their dreams and filling their conversations with an unspoken tension. One evening, a few weeks later, Emma received a text from Sarah. "I can't stop thinking about the blanket. I feel like we need to go back." Emma's heart raced. "Are you serious? After everything that happened?" "I know, but what if there's more to uncover? What if we can help them?" Sarah replied. Reluctantly, Emma shared the message with the others. To her surprise, they all felt the same pull to return. It was as if the park was calling them back, urging them to confront the shadows they had encountered. The following weekend, they found themselves standing at the entrance of Maplewood Park once more, the air thick with anticipation and dread. Armed with flashlights and a sense of purpose, they ventured into the park, determined to face whatever awaited them. As they approached the clearing where they had picnicked, the atmosphere felt charged, as if the very air was alive with energy. The sun was setting, casting long shadows that danced among the trees. They set down a new blanket, one they had brought specifically for this occasion, and sat in a circle. "Okay, what do we do?" Jake asked, his voice steady but laced with apprehension. "We need to acknowledge them," Emma said, her voice firm. "We need to let them know we're here to help." As they sat in silence, the whispers began to return, softer this time, almost like a gentle breeze rustling through the leaves. The friends closed their eyes, focusing on the sounds, allowing themselves to be enveloped by the energy of the park. "Is anyone there?" Emma called out, her voice steady. "We're here to listen. We want to help you find peace." The whispers grew louder, swirling around them, and the shadows began to take form once more. This time, however, they didn't feel threatening. Instead, they felt like lost souls yearning for release. "Help us, remember us," the voices echoed, a chorus of sorrow and longing. With newfound determination, the friends began to share stories of their lives, their hopes, and their dreams. They spoke of love, loss, and the beauty of life, inviting the spirits to join them in their memories. As they shared, the shadows began to shift, swirling around them in a dance of light and dark. Suddenly, a bright light enveloped the clearing, illuminating the faces of the lost family. They appeared as ethereal figures, their expressions a mix of gratitude and sorrow. The friends felt a wave of warmth wash over them, and the whispers transformed. It was a sunny Saturday morning when Mia and Alex decided to visit the local flea market. They loved exploring the eclectic mix of antiques, handmade crafts, and vintage items, always on the lookout for something unique to add to their home. As they wandered through the maze of stalls, Mia's eyes landed on an old, weathered picnic basket tucked away in a corner. "Look at this," she exclaimed, pulling the basket out from its dusty spot. The wicker was frayed in places, and the once bright red and white checkered lining was faded, but it had a certain charm that drew her in. "It's perfect for our picnic next weekend," Alex said, smiling at her enthusiasm. "How much?" After haggling with the vendor, they purchased the basket, excited about the memories they would create with it. That evening, they filled it with homemade sandwiches, fresh fruit, and a bottle of sparkling water, eager to enjoy a day outdoors. The following Saturday, they drove to a picturesque park surrounded by tall trees and blooming wildflowers. They found a secluded spot near a small pond, where the gentle sound of water lapping against the shore created a serene atmosphere. As they spread out a blanket and unpacked the basket, Mia felt a strange chill in the air, but she brushed it off as a passing breeze. "Everything looks amazing," she said, beaming at Alex as they sat down to eat. They toasted with their sparkling water, savoring the moment. But as they took their first bites, an unsettling feeling began to creep in. "Do you feel that?" Alex asked, his brow furrowing. "It's like, something's off." Mia nodded, her stomach twisting. "Yeah, I don't know why, but I feel really uneasy." They tried to shake off the feeling, focusing on their picnic. But as they continued to eat, the sense of dread deepened. The air around them felt heavy, and the once pleasant sounds of nature began to fade, replaced by an eerie silence. Suddenly, Mia noticed something strange about the basket. It seemed to pulse slightly, as if it were alive. She reached out to touch it, and a jolt of cold energy shot through her fingers. Startled, she pulled her hand back. "Alex, do you think there's something wrong with this basket?" she asked, her voice trembling. "I don't know," he replied, glancing at it warily. "But I don't like this feeling." Just then, a gust of wind swept through the clearing, rustling the leaves and sending a shiver down their spines. The temperature dropped, and the sky darkened ominously, as if a storm were brewing. Mia's heart raced as she felt an overwhelming sense of dread wash over her. "Let's pack up," she said, her voice barely above a whisper. "I don't want to stay here anymore." As they hurried to gather their things, they noticed the food in the basket had begun to spoil, even though they had just packed it. The sandwiches were turning gray, and the fruit was covered in dark spots. Panic set in as they realized the basket was not just old, it was cursed. "Do you think it belonged to someone who died?" Mia asked, her eyes wide with fear. "I don't know, but we need to get rid of it," Alex said, his voice shaking. "This isn't right." Just as they were about to leave, a chilling voice echoed through the trees, sending chills down their spines. "You shouldn't have taken it." Mia and Alex froze, their hearts pounding in their chests. They turned to see a shadowy figure emerging from the trees, its features obscured by darkness. The figure pointed at the basket, and a wave of despair washed over them. "Return what is mine," the voice commanded, filled with sorrow and anger. Without thinking, Mia grabbed the basket and hurled it into the pond. The moment it hit the water, a blinding flash of light erupted, and the figure let out a piercing scream. The water churned violently, and for a moment, it seemed as if the very fabric of reality was unraveling. Then, just as suddenly as it had begun, everything went quiet. The figure vanished, and the oppressive atmosphere lifted. The sun broke through the clouds, casting warm light over the park once more. Breathless and shaken, Mia and Alex stared at the pond, where the basket had sunk beneath the surface. "What just happened?" Mia whispered, her voice trembling. "I think we broke the curse," Alex replied, still in shock. "But we need to leave. Now." They quickly packed up their belongings and left the park, the weight of the experience heavy on their hearts. As they drove home, they couldn't shake the feeling that they had narrowly escaped something truly sinister. In the days that followed, they tried to put the experience behind them, but the memory of that day lingered like a shadow. Mia found herself glancing at the pond every time they passed by, half expecting to see the shadowy figure emerge again. Alex, too, felt the weight of the encounter, often waking in the middle of the night, drenched in sweat, haunted by the chilling voice that had commanded them to return what was hers. One evening, as they sat on the couch, Mia turned to Alex, her expression serious. "Do you think we really broke the curse? What if the spirit is still out there, waiting for us to return?" "I don't know," Alex replied, running a hand through his hair. "But I can't shake the feeling that we need to find out more about that basket. Maybe there's a reason it was cursed." Mia nodded, her curiosity piqued despite her fear. "Let's do some research. We need to know what we're dealing with." The next day, they visited the local library, poring over old newspapers and records. After hours of searching, they stumbled upon an article from the 1950s about a family that had mysteriously vanished while on a picnic in the very same park. The article mentioned a picnic basket that had been found abandoned, filled with spoiled food and a note that spoke of a tragic fate. "The family was never found," Mia read aloud, her voice trembling. "It says they were last seen enjoying a picnic, and then, nothing. It's like they just disappeared." Alex's face paled. "Do you think the basket belonged to them?" "It has to be," Mia replied, her heart racing. "But why would it be cursed? What happened to them?" Determined to uncover the truth, they continued their research, eventually discovering that the family had been rumored to have made a deal with a dark entity in exchange for prosperity. The deal had gone horribly wrong, leading to their disappearance and the curse that lingered over the basket. "We need to go back," Mia said, her voice resolute. "If we can find out what happened to them, maybe we can finally put this to rest." Reluctantly, Alex agreed, and they planned to return to the park the following weekend. As they approached the familiar clearing, the air felt charged with energy, and the shadows seemed to stretch longer than before. They set up a new picnic blanket, determined to confront the past. "Okay, what do we do?" Alex asked, glancing around nervously. We need to honor the family, Mia said, her voice steady. We need to acknowledge their pain and ask for forgiveness. They laid out a simple spread of food, sandwiches, fruit, and a small bouquet of wildflowers. As they sat down, Mia closed her eyes and took a deep breath. We're here to remember you, she said softly. We're sorry for what happened. We want to help you find peace. For a moment, nothing happened. The park was eerily quiet, and Mia felt a knot of anxiety tightening in her stomach. But then, a gentle breeze rustled the leaves, and the temperature dropped. The shadows around them began to shift, coalescing into the familiar figure they had seen before. Why have you returned? The figure asked, its voice echoing with sorrow. We want to help you, Mia replied, her heart racing. We learned about your family and what happened. We're sorry for taking the basket. We didn't know. The figure's expression softened, and for a moment, Mia thought she saw a flicker of hope in its eyes. The basket was a vessel of our pain. It held our memories, our regrets. You must release it to free us. With a deep breath, Mia nodded. We understand. We're ready to let go. As they spoke, the shadows around them began to swirl, and the air grew thick with emotion. The figure gestured toward the pond, and Mia felt a surge of determination. We'll return it, she said firmly. We'll make it right. They gathered the food and the flowers, walking to the edge of the pond. With a heavy heart, Mia placed the offerings on the water's surface, watching as they floated gently away. We honor you, she said, tears streaming down her face. We remember you. As the last of the offerings drifted out of sight, the figure smiled, a look of gratitude washing over its features. Thank you, it whispered, its voice now filled with warmth. You have freed us. It was a warm summer afternoon when a group of 4 friends, Rachel, Mark, Jenna, and Tom, decided to have a picnic in the historic Willow Grove Cemetery. Known for its beautiful, sprawling grounds and ancient trees, the cemetery was a favorite spot for locals seeking a quiet place to relax. The friends had always been drawn to the eerie charm of the place, and today seemed like the perfect day for an adventure. They packed a basket full of sandwiches, fruit, and drinks, and set off, excited to enjoy their day among the gravestones and the whispering trees. As they arrived, the sun shone brightly, casting dappled shadows on the ground. They found a secluded spot beneath a large oak tree, its branches swaying gently in the breeze. This place is beautiful, Jenna said, spreading out the blanket. I can't believe we've never had a picnic here before. Yeah, it's got a certain vibe, Mark replied, glancing around at the weathered headstones. Just think of all the stories these people could tell. As they settled down and began to eat, the atmosphere felt charged with an unusual energy. Laughter filled the air as they shared stories and jokes, but as the sun began to dip lower in the sky, a strange feeling crept in. Rachel, who had always been sensitive to her surroundings, felt a chill run down her spine. Does anyone else feel that? She asked, looking around nervously. Feel what? Tom replied, taking a bite of his sandwich. It's like, something's watching us, Rachel said, her voice barely above a whisper. Come on, it's just a cemetery, Mark laughed, trying to lighten the mood. What's the worst that could happen? But as they continued to eat, the air grew thick with an unsettling tension. Suddenly, Jenna gasped, pointing toward a nearby grave. Look! The friends turned to see a group of figures emerging from the shadows, dressed in old-fashioned clothing from the late 1800s. They were laughing and chatting, completely unaware of the modern picnic happening just a few feet away. The apparitions spread out a blanket of their own, setting up a lavish spread of food that seemed to shimmer in the fading light. "Are we seeing this?" Tom asked, his eyes wide with disbelief. "I think we are," Rachel replied, her heart racing. "This is incredible." The friends watched in awe as the ghostly figures interacted, their laughter echoing through the cemetery. It was as if they were witnessing a scene from the past, a moment frozen in time. The apparitions seemed joyful, completely absorbed in their own world. But as the friends tried to move closer to get a better look, they found themselves rooted to the spot. Panic set in as they realized they couldn't move. It was as if an invisible force held them in place, trapping them in the present while the ghosts continued their picnic. "Why can't we move?" Mark shouted, struggling against the unseen grip. "This isn't funny." "Maybe we're not supposed to be here," Jenna said, her voice trembling. "What if we've disturbed something?" As the ghostly picnic continued, the friends felt a wave of emotions wash over them: joy, sorrow, longing. They could hear snippets of conversation from the apparitions, words of love and laughter mingling with hints of sadness. It was a poignant reminder of lives once lived, of moments cherished and lost. "Look!" Rachel exclaimed, her eyes wide. "They're reenacting their last picnic." The friends watched as the apparitions raised their glasses in a toast, their faces illuminated by a soft, ethereal glow. But as the toast concluded, the atmosphere shifted. The laughter faded, replaced by a heavy silence. The ghostly figures began to look around, their expressions turning from joy to confusion, as if they sensed the presence of the living. "Help us," one of the apparitions suddenly cried, her voice echoing through the cemetery. "We're trapped in this moment." The friends exchanged terrified glances, realizing that the spirits were not just reliving a happy memory, they were stuck in a loop, unable to move on. The weight of their sorrow pressed down on the friends, and they felt an overwhelming urge to help. "Maybe we can free them," Rachel shouted, her voice filled with determination. "We need to acknowledge their pain." "Okay, but how?" Tom asked, still struggling against the invisible force. "Let's join their picnic," Jenna suggested, her eyes shining with resolve. "We need to show them that we remember them." With a surge of willpower, the friends focused on the apparitions, channeling their energy into a heartfelt message. "We honor you," Rachel called out. "We remember your joy and your love." As they spoke, the ghostly figures turned toward them, their expressions softening. The air around the friends shimmered with a warm light, and the oppressive force that had held them captive began to loosen its grip. The apparitions looked at the friends with a mixture of surprise and gratitude, as if they could feel the sincerity of their words. "Thank you," one of the spirits said, her voice now clear and resonant. "We have been lost for so long, trapped in this moment. We need to be remembered, not just as shadows of the past, but as people who lived and loved." The friends felt a rush of emotion, and they continued to speak, sharing their own stories of love, loss, and the importance of remembering those who came before. They spoke of the beauty of life, the fleeting nature of time, and the connections that bind people together, even across the boundaries of life and death. As they poured their hearts out, the atmosphere shifted once more. The ghostly picnic began to fade, the figures shimmering like mist in the sunlight. The friends felt a sense of peace wash over them, as if the spirits were finally finding solace in their words. "Thank you for remembering us," the spirit said again, her voice now filled with warmth. "You have given us the gift of release." With that, the apparitions raised their glasses one last time in a toast, their faces glowing with joy. The friends watched in awe as the figures began to dissolve into the air, their laughter echoing softly through the cemetery. The weight of sorrow that had hung over the picnic lifted, replaced by a sense of lightness and freedom. As the last of the apparitions faded away, the friends felt a rush of energy, and suddenly, they were free to move again. They stumbled back, breathless and overwhelmed by the experience. Did that really just happen? Mark asked, his voice shaky. I think it did, Jenna replied, her eyes wide with wonder. We helped them. Rachel looked around the cemetery, now bathed in the warm glow of the setting sun. We need to remember them, she said softly. We can't let their stories fade away. The friends gathered their belongings, still in shock but filled with a newfound sense of purpose. As they walked back through the cemetery, they made a pact to return regularly, to honor the spirits they had encountered and to share their stories with others. From that day on, the cemetery became a place of remembrance for them, a sacred space where they could connect with the past and celebrate the lives of those who had come before. They would bring flowers, leave notes, and share their own memories, ensuring that the spirits of Willow Grove Cemetery would never be forgotten. And every time they visited, they could almost hear the echoes of laughter in the air, a reminder that love transcends time, and that even in death, the bonds of friendship and family endure. It was a bright and sunny Saturday when the Johnson family decided to spend the day at Maplewood Park. The park was a local favorite, known for its sprawling green lawns, vibrant flower beds, and a picturesque lake where ducks paddled lazily. The family packed a picnic basket filled with sandwiches, fresh fruit, and homemade cookies, excited for a day of relaxation and fun. As they arrived, the children, Lily and Max, raced ahead, eager to claim the perfect spot under a large oak tree. Their parents, Sarah and David, followed with the picnic basket, laughter and chatter filling the air. They spread out a colorful blanket and set up their feast, the aroma of the food wafting through the warm breeze. Let's eat, Sarah announced, and the family dug into their meal, enjoying the sunshine and each other's company. They shared stories, played games, and relished the simple joy of being together. But as they settled into their picnic, something strange began to happen. Max reached for a sandwich, only to find it missing. Hey! Where's my sandwich? He exclaimed, looking around in confusion. It was right here, Lily said, her eyes wide. I saw it just a second ago. David chuckled, thinking it was just a case of forgetfulness. Maybe you ate it already, buddy. You know how hungry you get. But as they continued to eat, more items began to vanish. The fruit bowl, once brimming with apples and oranges, now had only a few pieces left. The cookies, which had been piled high, were dwindling rapidly. The family exchanged puzzled glances, their laughter fading as they realized something was amiss. Did anyone take the food? Sarah asked, looking around the park. I mean, really, where is it all going? Just then, Lily pointed toward the edge of the park, where a shadowy figure lurked behind a tree. The figure was tall and thin, dressed in ragged clothing that seemed to blend into the shadows. Its face was obscured, but the glint of eyes peering out sent a chill down the family's spines. Who is that? Max whispered, clutching his mother's arm. I don't know, David replied, his heart racing. But I think we should keep an eye on them. As they continued to eat, the figure moved stealthily, darting from tree to tree, always watching. Each time the family turned their backs, another item from their picnic would disappear. The tension in the air grew thick, and the once joyful atmosphere turned ominous. "Okay, this is getting weird," Sarah said, her voice low. "We need to pack up and leave." But just as they began to gather their things, the figure stepped out from behind the tree, revealing a gaunt face and hollow eyes. The family froze, fear gripping them as the figure approached, its movements slow and deliberate. "Please, don't go," the figure rasped, its voice barely above a whisper. "I'm hungry." The family exchanged terrified glances, unsure of what to do. "Who are you?" David asked, trying to keep his voice steady. I'm just trying to survive," the figure said, its eyes darting to the remaining food. "I didn't mean to scare you. I need something to eat." Sarah's heart softened at the desperation in the figure's voice. "We can share," she said cautiously. "But you need to tell us who you are." The figure hesitated, then stepped closer, revealing more of its face. "My name is Ethan. I used to have a family, but they're gone now. I've been living in the woods for months. I didn't know how to ask for help." The family's fear began to dissipate, replaced by empathy. "You don't have to steal from us," David said gently. "We can share our food. Just ask next time." Ethan's eyes widened with surprise, and he nodded slowly. "I'm sorry. I didn't want to frighten you. I didn't know what else to do." As the family offered Ethan some of their food, they learned more about his story. He had lost everything in a tragic accident and had been struggling to survive ever since. The Johnsons listened intently, their hearts aching for the man who had been driven to desperation. "Thank you," Ethan said, tears welling in his eyes as he accepted the food. "I didn't expect kindness. I thought you would be angry." "We understand," Sarah replied, her voice warm. "Everyone deserves a second chance." As they shared their picnic, the atmosphere shifted from fear to compassion. Ethan opened up about his life, and the family shared their own stories, finding common ground in their experiences. Laughter returned as they enjoyed the food together, and the initial tension melted away, replaced by a sense of camaraderie. The sun continued to shine brightly overhead, casting a warm glow on the unlikely gathering. As they shared sandwiches and fruit, Ethan began to smile, the weight of his struggles momentarily lifted. "I never thought I'd be having a picnic with a family again," he said, his voice filled with gratitude. "It feels good to be around people." Lily, who had been shy at first, chimed in, "You can come back and have a picnic with us anytime. We can bring more food next time." Ethan's eyes sparkled with hope. "I'd like that very much," he replied, his voice softening. "I've missed the simple things in life." As the afternoon wore on, the Johnsons learned more about Ethan's past. He had once been a teacher, passionate about sharing knowledge with children. The family shared their own stories, and laughter filled the air as they exchanged jokes and anecdotes. The picnic that had started with fear transformed into a moment of connection and understanding. Eventually, as the sun began to set, casting a golden hue over the park, the family knew it was time to pack up. "Thank you for sharing your food with me," Ethan said, his voice sincere. "I can't express how much this means to me." "Just remember, you're not alone," David said, placing a reassuring hand on Ethan's shoulder. "If you ever need help, don't hesitate to reach out. We'll be back here next weekend." Ethan nodded, a mixture of gratitude and sadness in his eyes. "I will. I promise." As the Johnsons gathered their belongings, they felt a sense of fulfillment. They had turned a potentially frightening encounter into an opportunity for kindness and connection. They waved goodbye to Ethan, who stood watching them with a smile, a glimmer of hope in his eyes. On the drive home, the family reflected on the day's events. "I'm glad we didn't let fear take over," Sarah said, her voice thoughtful. "We could have easily turned away, but instead, we chose to help." "Yeah," Max added, "Ethan seemed really nice once we got to know him. I hope he's okay." "He will be," Rachel said confidently. "We made a difference today, and that's what matters." The following week, the Johnsons returned to Maplewood Park, this time with a larger picnic basket filled with even more food. They set up their blanket in the same spot under the oak tree, eagerly anticipating Ethan's arrival. As they waited, they shared stories and played games, the sun shining brightly overhead. Just as they were finishing their meal, they spotted a familiar figure approaching from the path. Ethan walked toward them, looking healthier and more vibrant than the last time they had seen him. "Hey there," he called out, waving enthusiastically. "I couldn't believe it when I saw you all again." "Ethan!" Lily shouted, jumping up to greet him. "We brought even more food this time." As they welcomed him to their picnic, Ethan sat down with them, and they shared stories once more. This time, he brought along a small notebook filled with sketches he had made during his time in the woods. He showed them drawings of the animals he had encountered and the beautiful landscapes he had seen. The Johnsons were captivated, and they encouraged him to share his art with others. "You have a real talent," Sarah said, admiring one of the sketches. "You should consider showing your work at a local gallery." Ethan's face lit up with excitement. "You really think so?" "I've always wanted to share my art, but I didn't know how." "Absolutely," David replied. "We can help you get started. It's never too late to pursue your dreams." As the sun began to set once again, the family and Ethan sat together, enjoying the warmth of friendship and the beauty of the moment. They had turned a day that could have been filled with fear into one of hope, connection, and new beginnings. From that day forward, the Johnsons and Ethan formed a bond that would last beyond the park. They met regularly for picnics, sharing food. The sun was just beginning to rise over the horizon as a group of 5 friends, Emma, Jake, Mia, Tom, and Sarah, set out for a day of adventure in the dense and mysterious Whispering Pines forest. Known for its towering trees and winding trails, the forest was a popular spot for hikers and nature lovers. The friends had planned a picnic at a secluded clearing deep within the woods, eager to escape the noise of the city and enjoy the tranquility of nature. As they hiked along the winding path, the air was filled with the sounds of chirping birds and rustling leaves. The forest felt alive, and the friends reveled in the beauty surrounding them. After an hour of hiking, they finally reached their destination, a picturesque clearing bathed in sunlight, with a small stream trickling nearby. "This is perfect," Mia exclaimed, dropping her backpack and spreading out a blanket on the soft grass. The others quickly joined her, unpacking their picnic basket filled with sandwiches, fruits, and snacks. As they settled down to eat, laughter and chatter filled the air. They shared stories, reminisced about old times, and enjoyed the delicious food. But as they began to relax, a strange sensation crept over them. The forest, once vibrant and alive, seemed to grow eerily quiet. The birds stopped singing, and the gentle rustle of leaves faded into an unsettling silence. "Does anyone else feel that?" Jake asked, glancing around nervously. "Feel what?" Tom replied, taking a bite of his sandwich. "It's like something is watching us," Emma said, her voice barely above a whisper. Just then, a soft whisper floated through the air, barely audible but unmistakable. "Emma! Emma!" The friends froze, their eyes wide with fear. "Did you hear that?" Sarah asked, her voice trembling. "Hear what?" Tom replied, looking around. "It's probably just the wind." But the whispers grew louder, echoing through the trees, calling their names one by one. Jake. Mia. Tom. Sarah. Panic set in as the friends exchanged terrified glances. "We need to leave," Mia said, her voice shaking. "This isn't right." As they began to pack up their things, the whispers intensified, swirling around them like a haunting melody. "Come, deeper, into the woods." Against their better judgment, curiosity got the better of them. "What if it's just a trick of the forest?" Emma suggested, her heart racing. "Maybe we should see where it leads." Reluctantly, the others agreed, and they followed the sound of the whispers deeper into the forest. The trees grew denser, their branches intertwining overhead, casting eerie shadows on the ground. The whispers guided them, leading them further away from the clearing and into the heart of the woods. As they walked, the atmosphere shifted. The air grew colder, and an unsettling feeling settled in their stomachs. The whispers became more insistent, urging them onward. "Come, find us." After what felt like hours of wandering, they stumbled upon a clearing unlike any they had seen before. In the center stood an ancient stone altar, covered in moss and surrounded by twisted roots. The whispers grew louder, echoing around them, and the friends felt an overwhelming sense of dread. "What is this place?" Tom asked, his voice trembling. "I don't know, but it feels wrong," Sarah replied, her eyes darting around the clearing. Suddenly, the whispers coalesced into a single voice, deep and resonant. "You have come to seek the truth." The friends gasped, their hearts racing. "Who are you?" Emma called out, her voice shaking. "I am the guardian of this forest," the voice replied. "Long ago, a group of villagers made a pact with dark forces, sacrificing their own to ensure prosperity. They were never seen again, their souls trapped within these woods." The friends exchanged horrified glances, realizing the whispers were the lost souls of the villagers, calling out for help. "We didn't mean to intrude," Jake said, his voice filled with regret. "We just wanted to have a picnic." "Your presence has awakened the spirits," the guardian continued. "They seek release from their torment. You must choose, help them find peace or become part of the forest's dark legacy." The friends stood frozen, the weight of the decision pressing down on them. "How can we help?" Mia asked, her voice steady despite her fear. "To free the souls, you must perform a ritual at the altar," the guardian instructed. "Offer a token of your bond, something that represents your friendship." The friends looked at each other, understanding the gravity of the situation. They each removed a small item that held significance, a friendship bracelet, a keychain, a photograph, a piece of jewelry, and a small trinket. They placed the items on the altar, their hearts pounding as they did so. The moment the last item touched the stone, a surge of energy rippled through the clearing, and the whispers intensified, swirling around them like a tempest. "Now, speak the words of release," the guardian commanded, its voice echoing through the trees. "Speak from your hearts, and the souls shall be freed." Gathering their courage, the friends joined hands around the altar. "We honor the lost souls of this forest," Emma began, her voice steady. "We acknowledge your pain and suffering. We are here to help you find peace." "We remember you," Jake added, his voice strong. "You were once loved and cherished. Your stories deserve to be told." Mia continued, "We release you from this torment. You are not forgotten. You can move on." Tom and Sarah echoed their sentiments, their voices rising in unison. "We set you free. Go to the light and find your rest." As they spoke the final words, a brilliant light erupted from the altar, illuminating the clearing. The air crackled with energy, and the whispers transformed into a harmonious chorus, rising in pitch and intensity. The friends felt a warm breeze envelop them, lifting the weight of fear and sorrow from their hearts. Suddenly, the spirits of the villagers began to materialize around them, glowing figures with expressions of relief and gratitude. They reached out toward the friends, their faces serene as they began to ascend into the light that filled the clearing. "Thank you," the voices of the villagers echoed, a chorus of gratitude that resonated through the trees. "We are free." As the last of the spirits vanished into the light, the clearing fell silent. The oppressive atmosphere lifted, and the forest felt alive once more, the sounds of nature returning as if waking from a long slumber. The guardian's presence faded, leaving the friends standing in awe of what had just transpired. "We did it," Sarah whispered, tears of relief streaming down her face. "We really did it." "Yeah," Tom said, still in shock. "I can't believe we helped them." As they made their way back through the forest, the path felt different, brighter, more welcoming. The whispers that had once filled them with dread now felt like a gentle breeze, guiding them home. They emerged from the trees, the sun shining brightly overhead, and the weight of the experience settled into a sense of peace. Once they reached their car, they took a moment to catch their breath, still processing the events of the day. "I'll never forget this," Mia said, her voice filled with emotion. "We faced something truly incredible." "Yeah, and we learned that sometimes, the past needs to be acknowledged to find peace," Emma added, looking at her friends with gratitude. "I'm so glad we were together for this." As they drove away from Whispering Pines Forest, the friends felt a bond stronger than ever. They had faced the unknown, confronted their fears, and emerged victorious. The experience had changed them, deepening their appreciation for life and the connections they shared. In the days that followed, they often reflected on their adventure, sharing stories and memories of the spirits they had freed. They made a pact to return to the forest, not just as hikers but as guardians of the stories that needed to be told. They would honor the lost souls and ensure that their memories lived on, forever intertwined with the whispers of the forest. The sun hung low in the sky, casting a warm golden hue over the sprawling meadow that had been a cherished retreat for generations. Wildflowers danced in the gentle breeze, their colors vibrant against the backdrop of lush green grass. It was here, in this serene sanctuary, that Clara had spent countless afternoons with her grandmother, sharing stories, laughter, and the simple joy of being together. Today, however, Clara was alone, or so she thought. With a wicker basket in one hand and a checkered blanket draped over her arm, Clara made her way to the familiar spot beneath the old oak tree. Its gnarled branches stretched out like welcoming arms, and she could almost hear her grandmother's laughter echoing in the rustling leaves. Setting the basket down, she spread the blanket across the ground, smoothing out the wrinkles as she prepared for her solitary picnic. Inside the basket were her grandmother's favorite treats: homemade sandwiches, fresh strawberries, and a thermos of sweet iced tea. Clara took a moment to breathe in the fragrant air, her heart heavy with nostalgia. It had been a year since her grandmother had passed, and the ache of loss still lingered like a shadow. Today, she wanted to honor her memory, to feel her presence one last time. As she poured herself a glass of tea, Clara closed her eyes and allowed herself to drift back to those sun-drenched afternoons. She could almost hear her grandmother's voice, soft and soothing, guiding her through the stories of their family's past. "Remember, Clara," she would say, "the love we share never truly leaves us. It lingers in the air, in the memories we create." With a wistful smile, Clara opened her eyes and took a bite of her sandwich. The flavors were familiar, comforting, and for a moment, she felt as if her grandmother was sitting right beside her, sharing the meal. But then, a sudden chill swept through the air, causing her to shiver. The temperature dropped, and Clara instinctively glanced around, her heart racing. "Is someone there?" she called out, half expecting a playful breeze to answer her. But the meadow remained still, the only sound the distant chirping of birds. She shook her head, dismissing the sensation as a trick of her imagination. After all, grief had a way of playing with the mind. As she continued to eat, the chill returned, more pronounced this time. Clara felt a weight beside her, as if someone had settled down on the blanket. Her breath caught in her throat, and she turned slowly, her heart pounding. To her astonishment, she saw a faint, shimmering figure materializing beside her, a soft glow that took the shape of her grandmother. "Clara, my dear," the spirit whispered, her voice like a gentle breeze. "I've missed you." Tears welled in Clara's eyes as she stared at the apparition. "Grandma," she breathed, disbelief mingling with joy. "Is it really you?" The spirit nodded, her smile warm and familiar. "I couldn't resist joining you for this picnic. You've always known how to find me, even in the quietest moments." Clara's heart swelled with emotion. "I've missed you so much. I thought I'd never feel your presence again." "You carry me with you, always," her grandmother replied, her voice soothing. "But today, I wanted to remind you that love transcends even the boundaries of life and death." With that, the spirit reached out, and Clara felt a cool breeze envelop her, wrapping her in a comforting embrace. They sat together, sharing the meal, laughter echoing through the meadow as Clara recounted stories of her life since her grandmother's passing. She spoke of her struggles, her triumphs, and the moments that made her smile. The spirit listened intently, nodding and offering words of encouragement. As the sun dipped lower in the sky, casting long shadows across the meadow, Clara felt a sense of peace wash over her. The cold presence beside her was no longer frightening, it was a reminder of the bond they shared, a connection that could never be severed. "Thank you for this," Clara said, her voice thick with emotion. "I needed to feel you again." Her grandmother's spirit smiled, a radiant light in the fading day. "Remember, Clara, I am always with you. In your heart, in your memories, and in the love we shared. You are never truly alone." As the last rays of sunlight disappeared beyond the horizon, the spirit began to fade, the warmth of her presence lingering in the air. Clara felt a bittersweet ache in her heart, knowing their time together was coming to an end. But she also felt a profound sense of gratitude. "Goodbye, Grandma," she whispered, tears streaming down her cheeks. "I love you." "I love you too, my dear," the spirit replied, her voice fading like the last notes of a cherished song. "Carry my love with you always." As the final remnants of her grandmother's spirit dissolved into the twilight, Clara sat in silence, the meadow now bathed in the soft glow of the moonlight. The cool evening air wrapped around her like a gentle embrace, and she felt a sense of calm settle within her. The picnic had transformed from a solitary meal into a sacred moment of connection, a reminder that love knows no boundaries. Clara took a deep breath, savoring the lingering essence of her grandmother's presence. She looked around the meadow, the familiar sights now imbued with a new sense of magic. The wildflowers seemed to shimmer in the moonlight, and the old oak tree stood tall and proud, a sentinel of their shared memories. With a heart full of gratitude, Clara began to pack up the remnants of their picnic. She carefully placed the uneaten sandwiches and strawberries back into the basket, knowing that she would return to this spot again. It had become a place of solace, a bridge between the past and the present. As she stood to leave, Clara paused for a moment, glancing back at the oak tree. "Thank you for everything, Grandma," she whispered, her voice barely above a breath. "I'll keep our memories alive." With that promise echoing in her heart, Clara made her way back through the meadow, the path illuminated by the soft glow of the moon. Each step felt lighter, as if the weight of her grief had been lifted, replaced by a profound sense of love and connection. She knew that her grandmother would always be a part of her, guiding her through life's challenges and celebrating her joys. In the days that followed, Clara returned to the meadow often. Each visit became a ritual, a way to honor her grandmother's memory and to feel her presence in the gentle rustle of the leaves and the whisper of the wind. She brought new treats for their picnics, sharing stories of her life, her dreams, and her hopes for the future. And though she never saw her grandmother's spirit again, she felt her love surrounding her, a constant reminder that they were forever intertwined. As the seasons changed, so did Clara. She found solace in her grandmother's teachings, embracing life with renewed vigor. She began to volunteer at a local community center, sharing her love of cooking and storytelling with children who, like her, needed a guiding hand. Each time she shared a meal or a story, she felt her grandmother's spirit beside her, encouraging her to spread love and kindness. Years later, as Clara stood beneath the old oak tree, now a little taller and a little wiser, she smiled at the memories that flooded her mind. She had created a life filled with love, laughter, and connection, just as her grandmother had taught her. And in that moment, she knew that the bond they shared would never fade, it would continue to grow, nourished by the love they had cultivated together. With a heart full of gratitude, Clara spread a blanket on the grass, unpacked a picnic basket filled with her grandmother's favorite treats, and raised a glass of iced tea to the sky. "To you, Grandma," she said, her voice steady and strong. "Thank you for everything. I carry you with me, always." And as the sun dipped below the horizon, casting a warm glow over the meadow, Clara felt a gentle breeze brush against her cheek, a soft reminder that love, indeed, never dies. It lingers in the air, in the memories we create, and in the hearts of those we cherish. On a warm summer evening, a group of 5 friends, Emma, Jake, Sarah, Tom, and Lily, decided to escape the hustle and bustle of their daily lives and enjoy a picnic by Lake Seraphine, a serene spot known for its breathtaking sunsets and tranquil waters. The air was filled with laughter as they spread out their checkered blanket, unpacked homemade sandwiches, and shared stories, their spirits high as the sun dipped lower in the sky. As the golden rays began to fade, casting a warm glow over the lake, the friends noticed something peculiar. Their shadows, elongated and dark against the grass, began to twitch and shift independently of their owners. At first, it was subtle, a flicker here, a sway there, but soon, the shadows started to dance, moving in ways that were unsettling. "Look at that!" Jake exclaimed, pointing at his shadow, which seemed to stretch and curl like a serpent. The others turned to see their own shadows behaving similarly, twisting and contorting as if they had minds of their own. "What's happening?" Sarah asked, her voice tinged with unease. "This is creepy." Lily, ever the skeptic, laughed it off. It's just the light playing tricks on us. Shadows can't move on their own. But as the sun sank lower, the shadows grew bolder. Emma's shadow began to whisper, its voice a low murmur that only she could hear. "You've kept your secret well, haven't you?" it taunted, echoing her hidden fears. Emma's heart raced as she recalled the lies she had told her friends about her job, pretending to be successful when she was struggling to find work. Tom's shadow, meanwhile, began to mimic his movements but with a sinister twist, mocking his every gesture. "You think they don't know?" it sneered, revealing his secret crush on Sarah, a feeling he had buried deep, fearing it would ruin their friendship. As the shadows continued their eerie performance, the friends exchanged worried glances. The atmosphere shifted from light-hearted to tense, the laughter fading into an uncomfortable silence. Each friend was confronted by their own shadow, which seemed to know their darkest secrets. "Why is this happening?" Lily whispered, her eyes wide with fear. "This isn't normal." "Maybe it's the lake," Jake suggested, his voice trembling. "I've heard stories about it, how it reveals the truth." With a sudden burst of courage, Emma stood up. "We can't let this ruin our night. Let's face our shadows. They can't hurt us." The others hesitated but eventually nodded, drawn together by a shared sense of determination. They formed a circle, holding hands, and faced their shadows. "We're not afraid of you," Tom shouted, his voice echoing across the still water. In response, the shadows writhed and twisted, but they began to lose their power as the friends stood united. One by one, they began to speak their truths aloud, sharing their fears and secrets with one another. "I'm not as successful as I pretend to be," Emma admitted, her voice shaking. "I've been lying to you all. I have feelings for Sarah," Tom confessed, his cheeks flushed. "I didn't want to ruin our friendship." As each secret was revealed, the shadows began to shrink, their movements slowing until they finally settled back into their original forms, still but for the gentle sway of the evening breeze. The friends felt a weight lift from their shoulders, the air around them growing lighter. With the last rays of sunlight disappearing beyond the horizon, the friends embraced, their bond strengthened by the honesty they had shared. The lake, once a source of fear, now felt like a sanctuary, a place where they could be their true selves without judgment. As they packed up their picnic, the stars began to twinkle above, and the moon cast a silvery glow over the water. The shadows, now calm and still, no longer held power over them. They had faced their fears and emerged stronger, united by the truths they had dared to share. From that day on, Lake Seraphine became their sacred spot, a reminder that while shadows may reveal our darkest secrets, they also have the power to bring us closer together, illuminating the path to understanding and acceptance. As the friends made their way back to the car, the night air was filled with a sense of renewal. The laughter that had once faded was now back, echoing through the trees as they recounted their favorite moments from the picnic. The shadows that had once danced ominously were now just a memory, a reminder of the power of honesty and vulnerability. "Can you believe how wild that was?" Jake said, shaking his head in disbelief. "I thought I was going to lose it when my shadow started mocking me." "Right? But I'm glad we faced it together," Sarah replied, her eyes sparkling with the reflection of the stars above. "It's like we've shed a layer of ourselves. I feel lighter." Lily, who had been quiet for a moment, finally spoke up. "I think we should make this a tradition. Not just the picnic, but the honesty part too. We should always feel safe to share our truths." The others nodded in agreement, realizing how important it was to create a space where they could be open with one another. They had all carried their secrets for too long, and the experience at the lake had shown them the strength that came from vulnerability. As they reached the car, Emma turned to her friends, her heart full. "Thank you all for being so brave tonight. I know it wasn't easy, but I feel like we've grown closer because of it." "Here's to more picnics and more truths," Tom said, raising an imaginary glass. "And to the shadows that remind us to be real with each other." They all laughed, and as they piled into the car, the atmosphere was charged with a sense of camaraderie. The drive back was filled with music and chatter, the earlier tension replaced by a newfound connection. In the weeks that followed, the friends made it a point to meet regularly, not just for picnics but for deeper conversations. They shared their dreams, fears, and aspirations, creating a safe haven where they could express themselves without fear of judgment. Each gathering brought them closer, and the shadows of their past began to fade, replaced by the light of understanding and acceptance. One evening, as they sat around a bonfire at Lake Seraphine, Emma looked around at her friends, the flames casting warm light on their faces. "I can't believe how much we've changed since that night. It's like we've all stepped into the light together." "Yeah," Jake agreed, tossing another log onto the fire. "It's amazing what happens when you let go of the things that weigh you down." As the fire crackled and the stars twinkled above, they shared stories of their lives, their hopes for the future, and the lessons they had learned. The shadows that had once haunted them were now just a part of their journey, a reminder of the strength they found in each other. And so, the friends continued to gather at Lake Seraphine, their bond growing stronger with each meeting. They learned to embrace their imperfections and support one another through life's challenges. The lake, once a place of fear, had transformed into a sanctuary of truth and friendship. Years later, as they sat together reminiscing about their first picnic, they realized that the shadows had not disappeared entirely. Instead, they had learned to coexist with them. They understood that everyone has their own shadows, but it was the light of friendship and honesty that allowed them to navigate through life together. In the end, it wasn't just about the secrets revealed or the shadows confronted, it was about the love and support they found in one another. The picnic of shadows had become a cherished memory, a turning point in their lives that taught them the importance of being true to themselves and to each other. And as the sun set over Lake Seraphine once more, they knew that no matter what shadows lay ahead, they would face them together, united by the light of their friendship. The sun hung low in the sky, casting long shadows over the crumbling facade of the old asylum. Its once grand architecture now lay in decay, vines creeping up the walls and windows shattered like broken dreams. A group of 5 friends, Maya, Alex, Jordan, Lily, and Ben, had heard the stories about the place, tales of madness and despair, but curiosity outweighed caution. They decided to have a picnic in the eerie setting, hoping for an adventure that would make for a great story. As they set up their picnic blanket in a clearing just outside the asylum, the atmosphere felt charged with an unsettling energy. The air was thick with the scent of damp earth and moss, and the distant sound of rustling leaves seemed to whisper secrets of the past. Ignoring the chill that crept up their spines, they unpacked their food, sandwiches, fruit, and snacks, laughing and joking as they laid out their feast. While rummaging through the debris of the asylum, Ben stumbled upon an old, tattered menu lying on the ground, its edges frayed and yellowed with age. "Hey, check this out," he called, holding it up for the others to see. The menu was filled with bizarre and unsettling items, each more grotesque than the last. "The Last Supper," it read at the top, followed by dishes like screaming soup, madness meatloaf, and despair dessert. "Very appetizing," Maya said sarcastically, rolling her eyes. "Let's stick to our sandwiches, shall we?" But the menu intrigued them, and they couldn't resist the urge to joke about it. They began to read the items aloud, each one more ridiculous than the last, their laughter echoing through the abandoned grounds. "I'll take a side of insanity fries, please," Jordan quipped, and they all burst into laughter. As the sun dipped below the horizon, casting an orange glow over the asylum, they settled down to eat. The sandwiches tasted bland, but the atmosphere was electric, and they were too caught up in their banter to notice. They shared stories, reminiscing about their childhood adventures, and the laughter filled the air, momentarily drowning out the unsettling ambience of the asylum. But as they continued to eat, a strange sensation began to wash over them. It started with a slight dizziness, a feeling of lightheadedness that made them giggle at first. "Must be the old building getting to us," Alex joked, but the laughter soon faded as the dizziness intensified. "Do you guys feel that?" Lily asked, her voice trembling. "I feel weird." "Yeah, like I'm floating," Ben replied, his eyes wide. "What's happening?" Suddenly, the world around them began to shift. The shadows lengthened, twisting and contorting as if alive. The laughter that had once filled the air turned into nervous giggles, and the friends exchanged worried glances. The menu lay forgotten, but its words echoed in their minds, a haunting reminder of what they had unwittingly consumed. "Maybe we should leave," Maya suggested, her heart racing. "This place is giving me the creeps." But as they stood to pack up, their legs felt heavy, as if they were rooted to the ground. Panic set in as they realized they couldn't move. The asylum seemed to come alive around them, the walls whispering secrets of the past, and the air thick with a sense of foreboding. "Help! What's happening?" Jordan shouted, his voice rising in fear. "We need to get out of here." But the more they struggled, the more the sensation intensified. It was as if the asylum was feeding off their fear, drawing them deeper into its grasp. The shadows danced around them, and the whispers grew louder, a cacophony of voices that seemed to echo the horrors that had once taken place within those walls. In a moment of clarity, Ben remembered the menu. "The Last Supper, it's not just a joke. It's real," he gasped, his eyes wide with realization. "We've eaten something we shouldn't have." Maya's heart sank as she understood. "We need to fight it. We can't let this place take us." With a surge of determination, they focused on each other, their friendship a lifeline in the encroaching darkness. "We're not going to let this place win," Alex shouted, and they all joined hands, forming a circle of strength. As they concentrated on their bond, the shadows began to recede, the whispers fading into the background. They focused on their memories, the laughter they had shared, and the love that bound them together. Slowly, the heaviness lifted, and they felt their legs regain movement. "Run!" Maya shouted, and they bolted toward the exit, the asylum's grip loosening with every step. The shadows writhed and twisted behind them, but the friends pressed on, fueled by adrenaline and the urgency to escape. The once familiar path to the entrance now felt like a labyrinth, the walls closing in as they raced through the decaying corridors of the asylum. The whispers grew louder, a cacophony of voices urging them to turn back, to succumb to the darkness that had claimed so many before them. "Keep going. Don't look back," Ben shouted, his heart pounding in his chest. They could feel the cold breath of the asylum on their necks, the oppressive atmosphere trying to pull them back into its depths. As they reached the main hall, the grand staircase loomed before them, its steps cracked and worn. They hesitated for a moment, the weight of the place pressing down on them, but the thought of what lay behind them spurred them forward. They sprinted up the stairs, the sound of their footsteps echoing through the empty halls. Almost there. Jordan yelled, his voice filled with determination. They could see the light of the entrance ahead, a beacon of hope in the encroaching darkness. But just as they reached the door, it slammed shut with a deafening bang, trapping them inside. Panic surged through them as they pulled at the handle, but it wouldn't budge. The whispers intensified, swirling around them like a storm, taunting them with the knowledge of their impending doom. Think. There has to be a way out. Lily cried, her eyes wide with fear. They huddled together, their breaths coming in quick gasps as they tried to calm their racing hearts. Wait! Maya exclaimed, her mind racing. The menu. It mentioned something about the Last Supper. Maybe it's a riddle or a key to escape. Are you serious? Alex replied, glancing nervously at the door. We don't have time for riddles. No, listen. Maya insisted. What if it's about facing our fears? We need to confront whatever this place is trying to show us. The friends exchanged uncertain glances, but they knew they had little choice. They had to confront the darkness together. Okay, Ben said, his voice steadying. Let's do it. We'll face whatever this place throws at us. They formed a circle once more, holding hands tightly. On 3, we'll say our fears out loud, Maya suggested. We can't let them control us. Okay, Jordan nodded, his expression resolute. 1, 2, 3. I'm afraid of losing you all. Maya shouted, her voice breaking. I can't bear the thought of being alone. I'm afraid of never being good enough. Alex added, his voice trembling. Of failing at everything I try. I'm afraid of the darkness inside me, Ben confessed, his eyes glistening. Of becoming someone I don't recognize. I'm afraid of being trapped in my own mind, Lily admitted, her voice barely above a whisper. Of never escaping my own thoughts. As they shared their fears, the shadows around them began to shift, swirling in response to their honesty. The whispers transformed into a low hum, a sound that resonated with their confessions. The door rattled violently, as if the asylum itself was reacting to their bravery. Keep going. Jordan urged, his grip tightening on their hands. We can do this. With renewed determination, they continued to voice their fears, each confession breaking the hold the asylum had on them. The shadows writhed and twisted, but they no longer felt afraid. Instead, they felt empowered, united in their vulnerability. I'm afraid of never being happy. Maya shouted, her voice rising above the chaos. But I want to change that. I'm afraid of the unknown. Alex added, his heart racing. But I want to embrace it. I'm afraid of what I can't control. Ben cried out. But I want to learn to let go. I'm afraid of being forgotten. Lily shouted, tears streaming down her face. But I want to be remembered for who I am. With each fear they voiced, the shadows began to dissipate, the whispers fading into silence. The door rattled one last time before it swung open, revealing the moonlit night outside. The friends stood in awe, the oppressive atmosphere lifting as the asylum's grip finally broke. Let's go. Maya shouted, and they bolted through the doorway, racing into the cool night air.